I walked into the drizzling rain outside. In a trance, I seemed to see a delicate girl jump in front of me by stepping on the puddles. During the summer vacation after the college entrance examination, I received 3 pieces of bad news. My family went bankrupt. Jesse, whom I had been chasing for 3 years, got together with his childhood sweetheart. As I expected, I did poorly in the college entrance examination. My father sold the villa in the center of the neighboring city, and we moved back to our former rural hometown. Later, I cut off all contact with everyone and found a repeat study school to study again. 1 year later, I received the admission notice from Bai Cheng University. A few days after enrollment, I ran into a former high school classmate in the cafeteria. She was also very surprised to see me here. Joyce? I turned around in response. In my line of sight, a familiar face walked towards me. It's really you. Chai Hi. Holding her meal, said with a smile. Are you alone? Hearing this, I nodded. Then she turned her head and said something to her 2 friends queuing beside her, and then found a place to sit down with me. She was really surprised that I was here. When I first saw your side face, I didn't dare to recognize you. I was always very sociable in high school and had a very cheerful personality. It's just that I was so focused on Jessie at that time that I didn't have much contact with her. By the way, why did you suddenly lose contact back then? We couldn't even reach you for the graduation dinner. I smiled. My family went bankrupt and we moved back to our hometown. And my phone was stolen at that time. After hearing this, I kept saying that I was so pitiful. And then she took out her phone to add me on WeChat. After dinner, I was going to the library, and Chi walked with me all the way. She opened her mouth several times as if she wanted to say something but then closed it again. I wondered what made this girl hesitate to speak. Why are you so hesitant? Chai smiled and scratched her head embarrassedly. Don't think I'm too nosy. Okay? Haven't you contacted Jessie in this year either? Once. This name could almost stir up my emotions all the time. Hearing the name Jessie, again, I actually had a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. No. Actually, I think it's such a pity for you too. I was really into you too back then. No, not just me. The whole class was. Maybe it was because I looked so serious when she said this. I couldn't help laughing and said, he doesn't like me. Girl, you were wrong about the couple you shipped. I added in my heart, if you shipped him with Yvonne from the next class, that would be sweet. No. Do you know? At that time, Jessie was such a cool and indifferent person. And he was also good looking. So many girls in the whole school wanted to chase him. But they didn't dare to. She gesticulated animatedly, with her eyes shining. But you dared. You sweetly called Jessie every day, asked him to have dinner, and waited for him after class. Wow. My only pleasure in Senior 3 at that time was to watch your interactions. He was so indifferent to others. Yes. I know. But he always had a sense of helpless indulgence towards you. Every time the teacher called your name, Jessie was always there to clean up the mess for you later. It was so sweet back then. I kept smiling. Do you know what it means to directly taunt someone face to face? At that time, I was always being warm-hearted towards him while he was cold-shouldered, following him like a pest. He couldn't get rid of me, so he was only helpless. Jai seemed to be really talkative. She still seemed to have more to say even after walking with me all the way to the library. Joyce. Then I'll go first. Let's keep in touch on WeChat. Bye. I waved to her and smiled. Bye. In the evening, when I returned to the dormitory, my roommate Xiang Han, with a face mask on, pointed at the macarons on my desk and said, Joyce, a classmate who said was from your high school brought them for you. I walked over and took out my phone, wanting to send a message to Zhi's. As if she had expected it. She sent, don't refuse. This was the graduation gift I prepared for the whole class back then. I'm making it up to you today. After thinking for a while, I sent her a thank you emoji. She replied almost instantly, Joyce, let me add you back to our high school WeChat group. My hand paused on the screen. The cold and handsome face of that boy emerged in my mind. It had been so long. He already had a girlfriend. I should have nothing to be afraid of. Okay. A few seconds after the message was sent, the message page showed that I was added to the group chat. Immediately, several people in the group sent out questions and exclamations one after another. Is it really Joyce? The dormitory door was opened. Another roommate came back from outside. She threw her wet bag on the ground and complained, why did it rain all of a sudden on such a nice day? It couldn't even wait for me to come back before raining. Joyce, I'm going to take a bath first. I replied, okay. Go quickly. Don't catch a cold. Okay. By this time, many classmates had already shown up in the group. I quickly said, it's me. I'm Joyce. Oh my God. What happened to you back then? We couldn't reach you at all. It was so scary. Yes. I'm sorry. My phone was stolen back then. And it was a long time before I bought a new phone. Hi. It's okay as long as you're fine. Joyce. I heard that your family went bankrupt. Is it true? I looked at this question and blinked gently, yes. After that, the group seemed to be silent for a while. Soon someone came out and said, it's all in the past. It's over. Do you have a lot of courses? If not, when can we also get together? Wait for me to take a screenshot for you. It's simply inhumane. It's even more terrifying than high school. Wow. I can't feel that since I work 2 days and rest 3 days. I clicked on the group members and saw that Jesse's profile picture was still the same. Suddenly, I wondered, didn't Yvonne let him change it? For some reason, I clicked on that profile picture. There was nothing in his WeChat moments. I thought maybe he had set the privacy settings. Joyce Jianghan walked over wrapped in a blanket. I covered my phone in a bit of a panic. Fortunately, Jianghan's attention was all on the macarons and didn't notice my movement. Can I taste this macaron? She smiled embarrassed lie. This brand of macarons is quite delicious. I opened it for her with a smile. Take it. She ate while talking to me. By the way, Joyce, are you free next Wednesday? Let's go to a volunteer activity together. Yes. Okay. She smiled. Her eyes bright and charming. Sack. I tricked you again. All right. Then I'm going to bed. Thank you, beauty, for the macarons. When I opened my phone again, the page showed that the other party had passed her friend request. It was Jesse. I opened my eyes wide. And then a message came from him. What's up? Oh no. I guess he thought I was here to harass him again. I hesitated about whether to tell him that I clicked the wrong button. After thinking about it later, it didn't seem like a good idea. Nothing. Added from the group. After typing this sentence, I went to get my clothes and take a bath. Never mind. He has a girlfriend now. What could I be thinking about him? On the screen on my desktop that hadn't been turned off yet, the type-in indication on the other side lasted for quite a while before a message came. Time flew by. And on Wednesday, Zhang Han and I got our volunteer uniforms and walked towards the basketball court. Zhang Han could hardly contain her excitement. Fortunately we were quit. We finally got this highly sought-after volunteer job. We can earn volunteer hours and also see handsome guys. And this time it's actually at the Polytechnic University next door. I looked at Zhang Han and narrowed my eyes. So you've given up on your club president so quickly? No way. I'm just being fair to everyone. Finally, we arrived at the basketball court. There were already quite a few people taking their positions in the huge court. Zhang Han and I put on our volunteer uniforms. She looked around. Are you afraid that your club president is here? I nudged her, joking with her. She looked in the direction of the basketball court entrance, then shook her finger at me. No. I'm looking for handsome guys. Then she pulled me and turned my head towards a group of people walking in, all wearing neat black and white basketball uniforms. When my eyes landed on the boy who stood out in the crowd, my pupils dilated and my heart rate accelerated uncontrollably. At the same time, Zhang Han's excited voice came to my ears. "Do you see that boy in the middle with raspberry red hair? Isn't he so handsome? I tell you, he is definitely worthy of being the campus heartthrob. He's extremely handsome. After such a long time. I didn't expect to meet Jesse here again. I also didn't expect that he would dye his hair such a flamboyant color. I didn't dare to look at him as openly as Zhang Han did. I only dared to steal a few glances. He seemed to have changed. And yet he seemed the same. He had dyed his hair and got his ears pierced. But his eyes and expression were still as cold. But when I lowered my eyes and saw the girl beside him, I didn't dare to look at him at all. That girl was Yvonne. She was quietly following Jesse in a plain white dress. "Hey!" Zhang Han nudged me. Could that girl be his girlfriend? Although I've heard people from the Polytechnic University next door say that there is a girl who is often with Jesse. Could it be her? Zhang Han pouted. But she is really pretty. After she finished speaking, she changed the topic. But Joyce, you are more beautiful. At this moment, I regretted agreeing to be a volunteer with Zhang Han so much. Not to mention that our position was right opposite them. The key was that this red volunteer uniform was so conspicuous. Seeing that I didn't answer, Zhang Han became even more excited. That girl is like the beauty of a lotus emerging from water. While you are that kind of flamboyant and bright beauty. When I first saw you and your figure, I was just like, see has. More and more people were coming. The two of us volunteers were standing there. And Zhang Han still didn't know how to restrain herself and became more and more excited. Sister, if you keep talking like this, we will be reported. I helplessly held her hand that was about to touch me. And then Zhang Han winked at me. At first, I didn't know what she meant. Until Sheng Changfeng trotted towards us. He pursed his lips and smiled at me. Joyce, are you volunteering here? Zhang Han had run away at some point, leaving me alone here. Feeling embarrassed, I nodded as a response. Sheng Changfeng had been chasing me since the beginning of the semester. Even though I had clearly told him that I didn't like him, he still did as he pleased. I saw my former self in him. I seemed to realize what a big trouble I had been to Jesse back then. Then after the game ends, wait for me for a while. Let's have dinner together. Before I could refuse, Sheng Changfeng ran back with a smile. I opened my mouth, looking at his leaving back speechless lie. Zhang Han's voice, who didn't know when she had come back, rang out slowly. Actually, I think Sheng Changfeng is quite good. He's a very persevering young man. Meeting my murderous gaze, she quickly made a zipping up the mouth motion. I helplessly lowered my head, thinking about how to get through this long time. Zhang Han leaned into my ear again. Hey, do you know that handsome guy from the Polytechnic University? Why has he been looking at you all this time? Hearing this, my heart skipped a beat, and I hurriedly looked up. Jesse was sitting there, leaning back slightly, with no expression on his face. But there was a storm in his upturned peach blossom-shaped eyes. Could it be that he has fallen in love with you too? Zhang Han covered her mouth in surprise. I was really afraid of her big mouth. So I quickly covered it. Don't talk nonsense. He has a girlfriend. Woo woo. She blinked her eyes. And the words in her mouth mumbled out from between my fingers. His girlfriend is not as beautiful as you. A whistle blew. And the game officially began. Jesse's red hair was particularly eye-catching on the court. Coupled with his excellent dribbling and ball-handling skills, it made the girls in the stands scream continuously. Out of the corner of my eye, I accidentally caught a glimpse of Yvonne holding a water bottle on the opposite side. The girl's eyes were full of love, with a twinkle in them. Looking at her, I couldn't help but think of a basketball game between our school and the opposite school once. It was also a friendly match. As soon as school was over, I dragged my desk mate at that time and, holding the water, prepared for him. went to take a position early. Later, more and more people came. And my desk mate and I were secretly glad about our cleverness. Jesse at that time was also as eye-catching as he is now. I held the water, preparing to wave at him when he looked over here. My desk mate couldn't bear to see my expectant look and said to me, "I'll hold this position for you. You go over and say hello to him." I happily put down the water. Before I could take a step, I saw Yvonne walking towards Jesse with a bottle of water and a bright smile. The players had their exclusive seats. I stood there blankly, watching Yvonne sit down very naturally in Jesse's seat. A sharp whistle brought my thoughts back. I looked at the court blankly and saw a group of people surrounding something. Yvonne also rushed up quickly. I didn't even know when Jesse was helped to walk in front of me. Yvonne was following beside him. When she saw me, her expression froze, and she opened her mouth in surprise. Jesse was panting, his face slightly flushed and sweaty. He pursed his lips and stared at me intently with his pitch-black eyes. A player said, "Classmate, can you take us to the infirmary?" I nodded. When I turned around, I didn't know if it was my illusion, but Jessie looked at me a bit pitifully and then dejectedly lowered her eyes. The infirmary was not too far from the basketball court. It took only 2 minutes to get there. I stood outside with Yvonne. She smiled gently and said, "Have we met before?" "I don't think so." I lied without blushing or my heart beating faster. I glanced inside and heard her say to me, "Thank you. I'll take it from here. You can go." "Okay," I replied readily. And a trace of surprise flashed across her face. By the time the basketball game ended, it was almost dark. Since we had been standing all day, Shang-Han and I went to the cafeteria to get some food and then went back to the dormitory to eat. Help! Even with a man around, it's still tiring. As soon as Shang-Han got back, she collapsed into the chair and reached out to turn on the air conditioner. I had just opened my meal to start eating when my phone rang. I took a quick look and saw that it was an unmarked number. I immediately hung up. The next second, the phone rang again, with food in my mouth. It seemed to be the same number as before. I reached out and tapped to answer it. As a result, there was no sound from the other side. I cursed in my heart that the caller was sick and then hung up. "Shang-Han, who called you? Why didn't you answer?" I don't know. There was no one talking when I answered. Probably a scammer collecting voices. In a strange and colorful dream, I dreamed of the year when I first met Jesse in the first year of high school again. The boy was wearing a loose school uniform and giving a speech as a student representative on the stage. At that time, the gentle breeze just blew up the broken hair on the boy's forehead. And he entered the heart of 15-year-old me just like that. "Jesse, just be with me. I've been chasing you for so long." This was the second year I had been chasing him. I propped my face up and sat beside him, looking at his side-face infatuated lie. Jesse ignored me as usual, as if the test paper in his hand was more attractive than me. I wasn't annoyed either. I shamelessly moved closer to him, and a fresh smell of the boy wafted into my nose. "Just think about it." I gently poked his strong arm with my finger. He didn't move at all. I still remembered that the first time I touched him with my hand, I almost rolled off my seat. I couldn't help laughing with my eyes bent. At that time, I thought he was shy. The boy sat straight, not even giving me half a glance. I pouted and complained to him. "I tell you, I'm so beautiful. There are a whole bunch of boys chasing me. If you don't seize this great opportunity, maybe one day I'll change my mind and I definitely won't like you anymore." After I finished speaking, Jesse paused for a moment while writing. I was overjoyed, thinking that this time it would work. As a result, the boy sighed softly and said, "Joyce, focus on your study. I really don't like you. You. Just give it a try. How do you know you don't like me if you haven't tried?" I was eager to refute. Before I could say anything more, Yvonne's gentle voice came from behind. "Jesse, are you leaving?" Jesse glanced behind and replied, Yes. I got worried and grabbed Jessie. You don't like me. Do you like her? At that time, Jessie showed an extra expression towards me for a rare time, which was frowning. Don't talk nonsense. If Jessie had said that he liked Yvonne at that time, would I have continued to pester him? I think I would definitely not have continued to like him. But he didn't say that. So I continued to like him. Fortunately, I didn't like him year after year. Because there was no next year for me and him. There are really a lot of extracurricular time and activities in college. Compared with the dull high school, college is really colorful. On my way back to school after tutoring a child, I accidentally met Sheng Changfeng. The latter scratched his head and looked a little guilty as he said to me, "What a coincidence. Meeting you here." The Sheng Changfeng in front of me was very much like Joyce, who had once tried hard to accidentally meet Jessie. At this moment, I smiled at him and said, "Have you had dinner?" "No. Not yet," I said. "Then I'll treat you. The restaurant up ahead is quite delicious." Sheng Changfeng made small talk. Do you also like Northeast Chinese cuisine?" "I like it a lot too." While waiting for the food, Sheng Changfeng tilted his head and asked me what I liked to eat and which city I liked. Actually, Sheng Changfeng and Jessie were two extremes. Sheng Changfeng had a very sunny appearance, while Jessie was indifferent and cold. I looked at him and smiled. "Actually, you are very much like me before." His waving hands paused for a moment, and then his eyes lit up. He obediently replied to me. "Really?" I took a sip of water and said to him very softly, "Before, I liked a boy very much. I was happy just seeing him. I had never liked going to school so much. As long as there was a one-day holiday, all I thought about was that I wouldn't be able to see him for another day. I chased him for 3 years. During those 3 years, I always thought that in the end, he would be with me. But the fact was that the boy didn't like me at all during those 3 years." After finishing speaking, Sheng Changfeng frowned tightly. He was a smart person and knew what I wanted to say. "So, Sheng Changfeng, I don't want you to waste your time on me. I don't want to be in a relationship for the time being." He asked me, "Is it because of that guy? Do you still like him?" This question made me pause. Do I still like him? I pursed my lips. Actually, I don't know either. All the dishes had been served. Above the steaming mist, Sheng Changfeng looked at me and said, "Then can we be friends? I don't want to lose the chance to be friends with you because of this." I said, "Okay." After eating, he sent me to the downstairs of the dormitory. From a distance, I saw a tall figure standing under the tree. When we got closer, Jessie was holding a paper bag in his hand. The moment he saw me standing with Sheng Changfeng, his face turned pale instantly. Sheng Changfeng looked down and asked me, "Is it him?" I silently glanced at him, which in Jessie's eyes seemed like we were whispering to each other. I let him go first. Jessie strode in front of me, and the words he said carried a panic that he himself didn't expect. "Where did you go?" He didn't dare to ask what our relationship was. He was afraid of hearing an answer he didn't want to hear, whether it was a classmate or a friend asking me. I would say, "We went to have dinner." "So, now," I said to him, "we went to have dinner." Jessie couldn't help his eyes getting sore. He hoped that I would retort angrily, "It's none of your business." At least that would prove that I still cared about him. "Here you are." His throat was sour and his voice was hoarse. "I remember you used to like the desserts from this store very much." I twitched the corner of my mouth and shook my head. "I don't like them anymore. They're too sweet." He said, "Do you not like desserts? Or do you not like me anymore?" After he finished speaking, I looked at him when I heard his words. His eyes were red, as if I had abandoned him. All along, we have had no relationship at all, right? The evening breeze blew gently past us. There were classmates coming and going around constantly. And there were also a few couples lingering below. being affectionate and reluctant to part. I don't like you anymore, I said softly. Jesse reached out and pulled me, his whole body tottering. Is it because I was too cold towards you before that you don't like me anymore? I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Give me one more chance. Actually, I fell in love with you a long time ago. But I didn't know it was love at that time. By the time I knew, it was too late. You had cut off all contact with everyone. I went to your home to look for you. I went to find our head teacher, and the classmates who knew you. They all said they didn't know where you had gone. Tears fell from his eyes. And his eyes were full of despair. I can't find you anymore. Joyce. Hearing him say that he liked me, I didn't know what my mood was. Happy? It didn't seem so. I just felt a little sad. Why did he have to wait until I had given up on him to say that he liked me? I broke free from his hand that was holding me, took a step back, and my eyes were a little sore. Don't come to look for me again in the future. He opened his mouth, looked down at me, his pair of peach blossom eyes misty with water, looking extremely pitiful. Finally, he lowered his head and stepped aside to let me leave. Don't place your love on the cliff, because it is too high to reach. When I first read it, substituting myself and Jesse, a sentence came to my mind at that time: pull the high and mighty flower down from the altar. But later I thought, how could true love be placed in such a superior position that people can't feel it? That's too tiring. When Yvonne found me, I had just come out of the library. She smiled slightly. I heard from your roommate that you were in the library. Can we have a talk? In the coffee shop, Yvonne looked at me, and after a while, she smiled. Do you know what my first impression of you was? Huh? I shook my head. Annoying. She curled her lips and stirred the liquid in the cup with a spoon. You live freely, are beautiful, and come from a wealthy family. You already have everything. But you still come to compete with me for Jesse. My parents favor boys over girls. Jesse's mother raised me in her home. The first time I saw Jesse, I fell in love with him. I have been carefully keeping this love in my heart, not even daring to show a little bit. But you can blatantly express your love for him. Her hand unconsciously tightened. Why? Her smile became bleak. I really hate you. You are confident. I am inferior. And in the end, even Jesse likes you. I thought that WeChat moments post could make you completely give up on him. Clearly, you had already cut off all contact. Why are you still here? I listened quietly as she spoke. She lowered her head, and her voice was nasal. I thought you had won him over with time. So I thought that as long as I was like you, staying by his side and accompanying him, I would surely be with him. But no. He went to college and lost contact with you. He became even more gloomy. Except for going to class and playing basketball, he focused all his attention on the laboratory. No matter how hard I tried, he didn't give me any response. She said, Joyce, do you also think I'm a clown? I said, you like him and pursue him. It's just a matter. That's all. She laughed and then cried. I didn't know how many emotions were hidden in her crying. Finally, when we settled the bill and were leaving, she said, Jesse really likes you very much. I lowered my eyes and glanced at her, then walked out of the coffee shop. Jesse, who had been leaning against the wall just a second ago, immediately walked over, looking a little nervous. What did she say to you? Since the last time, Jesse had begun to follow me. As long as he had no classes, he would come to find me. I turned my head to look at the boy in front of me. He was wearing a sleeveless t-shirt that I liked. His muscles were firm and smooth, and his current expression was exactly like that of a pug at my friend's home. After going to college, I haven't had any contact with any other girls. I swear. Except for the senior sister in the laboratory. And that was for study. Then he pointed to his flamboyant red hair. I told you last time that my roommate forced me to dye it. Suddenly, I remembered what Yvonne had said to me, and I asked him, If it hadn't been me who chased you for 3 years, but another girl who chased you for 3 years, you would have liked her too, right? As soon as the words fell, Jesse's breath hitched. He reached out and touched my hand, and finally held it tightly. I don't know. But before you and after you, there were also many girls who chased me. I directly refused them all and wouldn't give any chance. He looked at me frowning and said hurriedly, "When you told me you liked me at our first meeting, I didn't refuse you." I recalled our first meeting. After the opening ceremony was over, I dragged my friend through the crowd to find him. At that time, many girls pretended to be passing by and walked beside him. He stopped under a tree waiting for his friend. I immediately went up and introduced myself with a smile. "Hello, classmate. I'm Joyce. Shaw of Summer, Jin of Joyce, and you of Joyce." He had his hands in his pockets, impatience hidden in his eyes, and didn't say a word. At that time, I was so in love that I just thought he was so handsome. "Remember my name. We will meet often in the future. Jesse." I was persistent, and my eyes narrowed a little. "Listen. I like you. I'm going to chase you." After saying that, I immediately ran away. Well, the truth was out. It wasn't that he didn't refuse. It was just that I didn't give him the chance to refuse. I didn't want to talk to him, and was about to leave. "Hey. Are you angry?" He quickly caught up and said, "Can you tell me what I did wrong? If you don't tell me, I don't know how to correct it. If you tell me, I will surely correct it." Everyone said that the high and mighty flower in the Polytechnic University was completely tamed by the freshman girl from the neighboring school. He reported in advance before doing experiments, pestered the girl to go out and play together, and had to have meals together every day. In senior year, Zhang Han asked me, "When are you getting married?" Just then, Jesse, who had come to help me move things, heard it. He smiled at Zhang Han and said, "It should be very soon. I will send you an invitation then." "Great." In the car, Jesse leaned over, his tone dissatisfied. "When are you going to take me to meet your parents?" "I'll take you when the time comes." I smiled at him. 3-year inspection period. I'm really wrong. If I could go back to high school, I would definitely kick myself a few times to make you proud. Make you proud. Jesse pointed at himself and said vividly. I was amused by him. His eyes darkened, and he held my face and kissed me. "I will take all my assets to propose to you tomorrow." In his junior year, Jesse started a game company with his friends. He provided the capital, and his friends provided the technology, and the scale gradually expanded. That day at my home, he went outside with my father. When they came back, my father was very happy, and said that the two families should meet together someday. I tilted my head to look at him. "You're quite resourceful." "That's right. My father-in-law is very satisfied with me," he whispered in my ear, a little smug. Our wedding date was set in September. Jesse stood on the stage, looking at me with joy and tears in his eyes. I held my father's hand, wearing a pure white wedding dress, and married the boy I had identified with since I was 16. Extra chapter: when Joyce no longer sent me messages. When there were no more of her chattering voices in my ear every silent night. By the time I noticed, I ran to her house. But it was already empty. I stood blankly in front of the door. Her familiar face made my heart skip a beat. I asked all of her friends, but they all said they didn't know clearly where she had gone. With my last hope, I asked our head teacher. The head teacher told me that she had done poorly in the exam, but she also didn't know where she was going to repeat a year of study. The WeChat page finally stopped at a message I sent to her. "I like you." Throughout the summer vacation, she seemed to disappear out of thin air and cut off all contact with everyone. She was really gone, just detached from my world like this. I had never thought about what life would be like without Joyce, because deep down I thought she would always like me and be with me. But I overlooked that Joyce was beautiful and had a sunny personality, whether or not I was there. She would live a good life. The first snow in my freshman year of college came extremely early. I remembered that she was most afraid of the cold, but also loved playing in the snow. During a heavy snowfall in my senior year of high school, just after we had finished an exam, I went down the stairwell. In the open space in front of the Confucius statue, there were a lot of students making snowmen. I searched for Joyce's figure in the crowd. Finally, at the corner, the girl suddenly jumped out, looking up at me with star-filled eyes and a smile. "Were you scared?" At that moment, I suddenly had an impulse to hug her into my arms. Even today, with red-rimmed eyes, I regret so much why I was so cold to her back then. The vast expanse of white snow covered the earth, pure and magnificent. Joyce, I miss you again. I don't even know myself when I started to like Joyce. At first, I was really a little resistant to her who forcibly barged into my life in the name of chasing me. She seemed to have endless energy every day, and was curious about everything. Like a curious doll. In my freshman year of high school, we were not in the same class. Not even in the same teaching building. After she came to see me for the first time, she became very familiar with the way later. Every time I was writing and my desk mate hadn't left yet, she would obediently find an empty seat and sit down. She was beautiful and could chat with anyone. At that time, even I didn't know where my anger came from. As soon as she sat down, the boys in front were waiting for her to talk to them. I put my book into my school bag, stood up a little too noisily, and walked out. The next second, she immediately chased after me. "Jessie, why are you leaving so early today?" My tone was a little unfriendly. "What? Am I leaving early and getting in the way of you talking to others?" After saying that, I immediately regretted it. Was my attitude too bad? As a result, she grinned, her eyes curving into a smile, and she leaned closer and asked me, "Are you jealous? You like me, so you don't like me talking to others, right?" My steps became flustered, and I pursed my lips without answering her. But she, who liked me so much, why did she disappear from my sight? "Joyce, have you thought of me?" There was a guy in the dormitory who made his girlfriend angry. He coaxed her for several days and finally bleached his hair silver. The next day, the two made up. His roommate asked him how they made up. He said very proudly, "This silver hair stands out in the crowd. My girlfriend is nearsighted and astigmatic, and she doesn't like wearing glasses. Every time she deliberately ignores me. I'll dye my hair a brighter color so that she can't ignore me." So that same day, I went and bleached my hair raspberry red. I didn't even know what I was thinking myself, but I wanted to seize every possibility for her to notice me. On my way back, I passed an earring store. Suddenly, I remembered her once propping up her face, enviously looking at girls with pierced ears. But she was afraid of pain herself and didn't dare to get her ears pierced. As she was thinking, she reached out and pinched my ear maliciously. After I dodged, she said, "Jessie, you are so good looking. If you get your ears pierced, you will look even better. Go and get one pierced. I'll buy you earrings. You'll definitely be very handsome." At that time, I just thought she was being fanciful. How could I possibly get my ears pierced? Later, when I came out of the store, my right ear hurt a little. "Joyce, I've got my ear pierced. When are you going to buy me earrings?" I had fantasized about meeting her again. It could be that she rushed up and threw herself into my arms. Or it could be that she might have a boyfriend. But when she finally actually appeared in front of me, she was talking and laughing with her friends. So vivid and lively. But she just looked at me across the crowd and never looked at me again from beginning to end. My heart ached as if something was churning inside. There was also a man who ran over to talk to her. What were they talking about? Unnamed jealousy welled up in my heart. After getting on the court, she didn't look at me either. Once, Joyce had clearly come only for me. I lost my strength and fell to the ground. When my teammate helped me go to her, I admit that I did it on purpose. But she just glanced at me. I didn't see the overflowing worry in her eyes like before. My eyes were sore. Had she really given up on me? Later, she left without saying a single word of concern to me. After returning, I got her phone number from CHI's EIHI. Without hesitation, I sent a message. At that time, my mind was full of what to say. What to say? Ask her why she hadn't contacted me for so long. Or why she hadn't shown concern just now. But did I still have the right now? The first time, she hung up. The second time, she didn't say anything, and I didn't dare to make a sound either. I was scared. She hung up again. That time when I saw her walking back to the dormitory with another man. My head was buzzing. She said she didn't like me. I hurriedly grabbed her hand as if grabbing a life-saving straw. As long as she gave me one chance. This time it would be my turn to chase her. Later, many times I asked her if she was really going to give up on me. She raised her eyebrows. After the college entrance examination, I thought it was impossible between you and me. She was sleeping soundly beside me. I held her and kissed her again and again. Fortunately, I met her again. On the eve of the wedding, I secretly ran to find her. She smiled a little shyly. Go back. I'm not going to run away. I looked at the person in front of me with a slightly flushed face and reached out to hug her. Even if you run away, I will find you. No matter what, I will find you back. She breathed gently, and her little hand was a bit naughty on my chest. What do you think would have happened if I hadn't applied to BI Cheng University? In her curious eyes, the corners of my mouth curved up. Amid her exclamation, I picked her up and walked towards the bed. Then I will wait for you. Look for you until finally I find you and we get married. In love, don't place love on a precipice, for it is too high and unattainable.